Hey guys, Victor here again, and today I'm coming at you with another retro deck profile for the September 2011 format. Today's focus will be the Malefic deck, which is one of the very few original Oonga Boonga decks for this era. The reason for this is because compared to most other decks, the playstyle is extremely simple. All you want to do is summon out a big monster and attack. So, with that in mind, let's get straight to the deck profile. Right, so starting off with the monsters, we have 3 Malefic Cyber End Dragon. It's a 4,000 beat stick. It pretty much gets over any monster you might have trouble attacking. And then the fact that it's 4,000 attack and easily summonable by banishing a Cyber End Dragon from your extra deck is really, really good. And then in addition to that, we also play 3 Malefic Stardust Dragons. We only play these 2 Malefics. We do not play like the Blue Eyes or the Red Eyes because those ones are bad and tend to break your hands, since they require you to main deck monsters such as Blue Eyes and Red Eyes, which doesn't really do anything for this deck. We will only be playing the Malefic Stardust and the Malefic Cyber End because they are able to banish from the extra deck to special summon themselves. And then in addition to that, Malefic Stardust Dragon has a bonus effect where it protects your field spells from being destroyed by card effects, which is pretty important in a deck that relies on having field spells on the field in order to function. Then we play 3 Gravekeeper's Commandant, pretty important in order to search out Necrovalley, which is one of 2 field spells which we play. Necrovalley is really good in this format because a lot of the cards are graveyard reliant, so it's able to pretty much win games single-handedly. And then even if you draw multiples, it's okay because a 2100 beat stick is still fairly difficult for decks to out. And then in addition to that, we're also going to be playing 2 Beast King Barbaroses, just a very good generic beat stick. And then since this is technically an Oonga Boonga deck, we are going to be playing triple Skill Drain, so this card will pretty much always be at 3,000 attack. And then lastly, we play 2 Ancient Gear Gaditron Dragon. So spoiler alert, we will be playing Geartown in this deck as it's a field spell, and whenever it gets destroyed, we will be able to special summon this card from our deck, hand or graveyard. It's pretty much just like a great floater, and then its additional effect of whenever it battles, your opponent cannot activate spells or traps helps a lot in ensuring that you're able to clear your opponent's board more efficiently. And with that wraps up the monster count, so now we can get straight into the spell card portion of the deck. Now, when it comes to the spell cards of this deck, our main goal is to try and get to the field spells as quickly as possible. So because of that, we will be playing triple Terraforming, as it literally just adds any field spell from your deck to your hand. And then in addition to that, we will also be playing 3 Pot of Duality. Now, while this deck is a little special summon heavy, the format's slow enough to where it doesn't really matter, so you can afford to wait a turn in order to special summon, and this is just really good at helping you dig for key pieces. And then we also play 3 Necrovalleys, which we can search off our Gravekeeper's Commandant or our Terraformings or our Dualities. And then it's really good in this format because a lot of decks are really, really focused on the graveyard, so just being able to activate this is enough to stun them and help you win the game. And then in addition to that, we also play the 3 Geartown. So Geartown is really important because during this point in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, it works completely different compared to the modern era. So what I mean is, at this point, you could activate the Geartown, and then if you set a field spell over it, it would be considered destroyed, which would trigger its second effect to special summon any ancient gear from your hand, deck, or graveyard, as opposed to now, where if you set a field spell over it, it would just be sent. So because of this, Geartown was actually a really, really good card in ensuring that you could actually get a monster out every single turn, which is why we play this and the Ancient Gear Gaditron Dragon. And that's pretty much it for the field spells. There isn't really anything else worth playing at the moment, but these 6 are pretty much staples. And then for our other 3 we play 3-Dimensional Fissure. This deck does not care about its graveyard, and luckily for us, a lot of decks in this format really do care about their graveyard. So if you combine this with Necrovalley, you've pretty much already won the game against most decks, as TG monsters need to go to the graveyard if they get destroyed in order to float. Agents pretty much rely entirely on the graveyard. The only way they'd be able to get something there is with like the Mystic Shine Balls under a Gachi Gachi Gentetsu. If you play against Tengu, pretty much losing 1 Tengu permanently is enough to cripple that deck for the long run. This card is just really, really solid. Of course, this is also the biggest flex spot, so if you want to play something else, like you can take this out, you can put in some maxis, you can, I don't know, whatever else you may want to put into the deck. It's really up to you, but I prefer playing 3-Dimensional Fissure, just because this deck really does not care about it. And then because we play Necrovalley, we will also be playing 2 Royal Tribute. You activate Necrovalley, you activate Royal Tribute, you pretty much win the game as you send every single monster in your opponent's hand to the graveyard. Yeah, it's just a really, really good win more card. Not even win more, honestly. It's just the moment you activate this, you have already put yourself so far ahead as you get free knowledge on your opponent's hand while getting rid of all their monsters too. And then since Necrovalley will be on the board, chances are they won't be able to get them back or use them for the most part for the rest of the duel. And then lastly, we play 1 Heavy Storm. While this may seem counterintuitive since it destroys your field spells, it's okay because being able to destroy your Geartown will summon out a Gaditron dragon. And if you have Malefic Stardust on the field, your field spells are protected anyways. So you're basically just getting a free board wipe no matter what. And that will finish up our spell lineup for the deck. So now we can finally move into the trap portion. So even though this deck is considered Unga Bunga, it's more Unga Bunga in the sense that your monsters are incredibly strong, so your opponent has a difficult time just dealing with them thanks to their high attack points, instead of the more modern approach where you're setting 5 and telling your opponent to have fun breaking your board. But even with that in mind, the traps are still incredibly important and go a long way in helping you secure the win. So with that, we're going to start off with 1 Starlight Road. Pretty much helps us deal with mass removal, whether it be Dark Hole, Heavy Storm, Torrential, Mirror Force, you name it. Those are all cards that are extremely powerful against this deck, and with this, the chances, if it resolves, the chances of us winning are pretty high, honestly. And then we have the 1 Solemn Judgment, pretty much for the same reason as everything else. It's just an instant negate for whatever may threaten your board, whether it be heavy, MST, you name it. Just a really good card. We also play the 2 Solemn Warnings. This is probably one of the more cuttable ones, but I honestly prefer it. If you want, you can just play either 2 Bottomless, 2 Compulse, 2 Deep Prisons. It doesn't really matter. You can just pretty much play whatever you want. Even if you want to play like Maxi, for example, you can just cut this and put in 2 Maxis. The decisions are pretty much all up to you. And then for our final 2 of, we will be playing 2 Dark Bribe, as it's pretty much just a generic negate. Sure, you give your opponent a card, but it doesn't really matter because what you're saving is typically way more important and impactful than whatever they will be drawing. And then finally, we play 3 Skill Drain. This deck does not care about effects. In fact, it 100% prefers not having their effects active. One of the better plays is if you don't have a field spell but you have a Skill Drain, you can still special summon your Malefics and they will not die thanks to Skill Drain negating their effects. And then that's not to mention that Skill Drain is incredibly powerful against pretty much every single top deck outside of like TG, but this deck already has such a good TG matchup that doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's the trap lineup. I don't think you really need any more than that. This low count for the trap lineup is pretty much as good as it is, and so we can finally move on to the extra deck with that. So the extra deck is actually pretty small because the fact of the matter is we only use 6 cards, which are 3 Stardust Dragons and 3 Cyber End Dragons. We pretty much only use these 6 because we want to make sure that our Malefics can be summoned no matter what in any situation. The rest of the extra deck legitimately does not matter. You can play whatever you want. You can play some rank 4s, some random synchros. Yeah, just make sure that you do have 15 though, because if you show up with 6 cards in your extra deck, it's going to be a little suspicious and your opponent might think that something's up. So yeah, with that in mind, that's the deck. If you guys enjoyed it, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!